I never thought a single evening could turn my world upside down. The text from Mom had been brief, almost casual. "Come home early tonight. I have something to show you." Normally, her messages carried playful teasing or mundane reminders about dinner, but this one felt different, heavy with unspoken meaning. "My name is Sarah, and I've always considered myself grounded, the kind of person who believes life makes sense until it doesn't. Mom, Linda, is the kind of woman who seems to carry the sun inside her. She's warm, generous, endlessly patient, and her laughter has a way of filling the smallest rooms. Yet, behind her bright smiles and nurturing hands, I've always sensed quiet layers of worry and secrets tucked away, hidden like delicate keepsakes she never quite felt ready to share." Our house was still, bathed in the soft amber of twilight. The smell of vanilla and fresh bread drifted from the kitchen, a comfort that somehow heightened my unease. I found Mom at the counter, her hands deftly working over something wrapped in brown paper. She looked up, her eyes catching the fading light, and for a moment, I didn't recognize the tension there. "Sarah," she said, voice low, almost fragile, "I need you to see this." I glanced around the room as if looking for clues, but there were none. My younger brother, Alex, was nowhere in sight, probably lost in his world of cartoons or scattered toys. He's 7 years younger than me, loud and impatient, yet endlessly curious, the kind of boy whose laughter can undo any bad day. Mom's expression drew my gaze back. I felt a flicker of premonition. "What is it?" I asked, though part of me already feared the answer. Mom hesitated, a breath suspended between us, heavy and deliberate. "Something about your father, something I should have told you years ago." The words hit me with a strange mixture of disbelief and dread. My father, gone for 10 years, had always been my hero, the man whose hands built forts in the living room, whose voice read bedtime stories even when he was exhausted. And now, a secret he had carried and she had kept was about to resurface, threatening to shatter the image I had held onto all these years. I reached for the brown paper, my hands trembling slightly. Whatever lay beneath it was more than an object, it was a key to a story I wasn't ready to hear, a truth that would test the foundations of everything I believed about love, loyalty, and family. As I unfolded the package, I had no idea that the night would not just reveal a secret, but change the way I saw my entire life, and the people I loved most. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she set the brown paper bundle on the kitchen table. I noticed every detail, the faint crease at the corner of her eyes, the way she avoided meeting mine fully, the tiny sigh that slipped past her lips as if it had been held for years. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, as though even the walls were holding their breath. I sat down, trying to steady my thoughts. Alex's laughter from earlier still echoed faintly in my mind, a reminder of the innocence I wanted to protect. I'm the eldest, the one Mom leaned on after Dad's passing, but that role never came with instructions. Grief, I learned, is an uninvited tutor. It teaches patience, endurance, and the careful art of holding in your questions until you have the courage to ask. Mom finally spoke, her voice a whisper. "Your father, he left something behind. Not just for you, for Alex too. Something I wasn't ready to give, because the truth isn't easy, Sarah." Her words sent a chill down my spine. I had spent years idolizing Dad, the man who had built our lives with love and care, but these words hinted at a fracture I never suspected. I felt a wave of anxiety, mixed with a curiosity I couldn't suppress. "You mean, letters? Or money?" I asked, my voice tighter than I intended. Mom shook her head. "More than that. Memories. Confessions. Things he carried alone, things I discovered only after he was gone." She paused, letting her words hang like fragile glass between us. "I kept them safe for a reason. But now, I think you're ready." I looked at her, searching for a clue, any sign that this wasn't another one of Mom's dramatic surprises. But her expression was solemn, almost vulnerable. For the first time in my life, I saw her not as the unshakable woman I had depended on, but as someone human, someone who had weathered storms I could barely imagine. The weight of expectation pressed down on me as I reached for the bundle. Inside were envelopes tied with a faded ribbon, each one heavy with the invisible burden of secrets. My fingers trembled as I lifted the top letter. The handwriting was unmistakable, Dad's. Every curve, every dot, carried his presence, and suddenly, he felt closer than he had in years, yet more distant than ever. Mom watched me quietly, her hand hovering over mine, as if ready to steady me if the truth proved too much. "Whatever you find," she said softly, "remember that love is never simple. Your father made mistakes, yes, but he also loved us fiercely. That's what matters now." I nodded, swallowing hard, the first shiver of realization crawling up my spine. The night was about to unveil truths that would challenge everything I believed about family, loyalty, and forgiveness. And somehow, even in that moment of fear, I felt a strange sense of anticipation, as though the journey we were about to take might also be the one that finally healed us. I unfolded the first letter, and the familiar curl of Dad's handwriting immediately tugged at my chest. At first, the words seemed innocent, longing, small confessions, mentions of work and mundane family life, but as I read further, a creeping unease settled in. Each line hinted at something unspoken, a hidden corner of my father's life I had never known. "Sarah," I whispered, almost to myself, the sound barely rising above the hum of the refrigerator. Mom remained quiet, watching me with a strange combination of sorrow and resolve. Her presence, usually a comfort, now carried a weight I could feel pressing on my ribs. The letters revealed a story I wasn't ready for. My father had loved another woman, someone outside our family, someone whose existence had been carefully hidden from us. Each word carried longing, guilt, and fear of discovery. I felt a twist in my stomach, a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. How could the man who read me bedtime stories, who held my hand through scraped knees, harbor a secret that cut so deeply? Mom's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. "I found these after he died. I didn't know whether to burn them, hide them, or give them to you. But hiding the truth, it only buries the pain." I swallowed, my throat tight. "Why didn't you tell me before? Why keep it all hidden?" "Because," she said, her eyes glistening, "I wasn't ready either. Some truths need courage and time to face. And you had to be ready to see him as he was, not just as the father you loved." I stared at her, suddenly aware of how little I really knew about the depth of her own pain. She had carried this secret alone, protecting me and Alex, while pretending everything was normal. I realized that my anger wasn't just for Dad, it was also for Mom, for the years of silence and the invisible burden she had borne. As I read more letters, the complexity of Dad's life unfolded like a fragile origami. There was regret, genuine love for our family, and a plea for understanding from beyond the grave. In one letter, he admitted that he had made mistakes, yes, but he had never wanted to hurt us. He wrote about us constantly, about Alex's mischievous smiles and my stubborn streak, reminding himself to cherish the family he had built even as he strayed. I closed the letter with a trembling hand. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. The story of love and betrayal, once abstract, was now tangible, pressing against my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. Mom reached over and took my hand. "The past is never perfect, Sarah. But it shapes who we are, and how we love." I nodded, the first spark of understanding piercing through the haze of confusion and pain. I didn't yet know how to forgive, or even if I could, but I knew one thing: our lives would never be the same. The night had only just begun, and the journey through truth, heartbreak, and eventual healing was just opening its first page. The next letter was heavier than the first, not in weight, but in the truth it carried. As I unfolded it, my hands shook with anticipation and dread. Dad's words were raw, intimate confessions I could no longer ignore. He wrote about love, our family, yes, but also about the other woman, the affair he had carried silently for years. The shock was immediate, like a thunderclap splitting open everything I believed about him. I looked up at Mom, searching for her reaction. She was quiet, calm in the way only someone who has lived with pain for decades can be. Her eyes reflected sorrow, but also an unwavering strength. "I know it hurts," she said softly, "but it's the whole truth, and it's ours to face now." The letter continued, revealing not just the affair, but Dad's reflections on mistakes, choices, and consequences. He admitted his fear of losing us, of shattering the life he loved. Every line carried regret, every word a plea for understanding from a place he no longer inhabited. I realized then that his love for our family had been constant, even amidst betrayal. Tears streamed down my face, not from anger alone, but from the magnitude of conflicting emotions: love, grief, shock, and an unexpected compassion. How could a person be capable of so much love and yet falter so profoundly? I felt the room tilt, my heart heavy with the weight of revelation, and yet strangely buoyed by the honesty before me. Mom reached for a second item, a small journal, leather-bound and worn. "This," she said, "is his attempt to reconcile everything in his mind. He wanted you and Alex to have it, to understand that life, love, and forgiveness are intertwined, messy, and sometimes impossible to separate." I opened the journal carefully, and Dad's handwriting poured over the pages like a lifeline. Memories of my childhood intertwined with admissions of guilt, moments of joy tinged with remorse, and reflections that reached beyond the grave. He wrote about Alex's laughter echoing through the halls, about the stubborn streak I had inherited, about the hope that we would grow strong enough to forgive even him. Through tears, I understood that this revelation was not just about betrayal. It was about legacy, about honesty, about the resilience of the human heart. Dad had erred, yes, but he had also left behind a blueprint for love that endured, flaws and all. Mom placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "It's not easy," she whispered, "but this is our chance to understand, to forgive, to move forward together." I nodded, the turmoil inside me shifting slowly into something gentler, something that resembled acceptance. The truth had been laid bare, jagged and painful, yet illuminated by love. I didn't know how we would navigate the days ahead, or how the story of Dad's choices would reshape our family, but one certainty remained: nothing would ever be the same again. And somehow, in that understanding, I found the first fragile thread of hope. In the weeks that followed, our house felt lighter, even as the echoes of Dad's letters and journal lingered in every corner. The secret that had once loomed like a shadow now rested on the table, no longer hidden, no longer feared. Alex and I often sat together, reading passages aloud, laughing at his misinterpretations, or pausing to share quiet reflections. Mom would join us sometimes, her presence steady, her smile softer, more genuine than ever before. The revelation of Dad's affair had rocked us, yes, but it had also revealed something I hadn't expected: the resilience of our family. Mom's courage in sharing the truth, her insistence that we confront the past rather than bury it, had shown me that love is not defined by perfection, but by endurance. The messy, complicated love of adults, flawed, human, sometimes painful, could coexist with the innocent, unshakable love we felt for one another. I often thought about Dad in those days, about the man who had made mistakes yet had left behind not just regret, but guidance. The letters, the journal, the photographs, they weren't mere relics of betrayal, they were tools of understanding, a map through which we could navigate grief, anger, and ultimately, forgiveness. I began to see him not only as a father who had erred, but as a man who had loved fiercely, and who had trusted us enough to inherit the truth. Mom and I had long conversations, sometimes tearful, sometimes quiet, about choices, consequences, and the meaning of family. "Life doesn't hand out clarity easily," she said one evening as we watched the sun set across the yard. "But the way we respond, the way we carry love forward, that defines us more than the mistakes themselves." I nodded, understanding for the first time the full weight of her words. Alex remained blissfully unaware of all the subtleties, laughing and running through the yard, the embodiment of innocence and joy. Yet even he benefited from the shift in our household. Our conversations were richer, our bonds stronger, and our silences less heavy. I realized, in the quiet moments when I read Dad's final notes or glanced at Mom's knowing smile, that the gift Mom had given was never about the letters themselves. It was the chance to see truth in its full complexity, to confront pain with courage, and to recognize that love, however imperfect, can endure, evolve, and even heal. Now, as I look at our family gathered in the living room, laughing over a shared joke, I feel a profound sense of gratitude. The past remains, jagged and real, but it no longer dictates our present. Mom's courage, Dad's honesty, and our willingness to embrace both have transformed us. The gift wasn't simply a revelation, it was the power to forgive, to understand, and to move forward together. And as I watch Alex curl up on the sofa, half asleep and dreaming, I finally understand: love, even tested by betrayal, has a way of finding its way home.